All right, boys. This is a big day. We have some cool things that have happened, and we have some things on the way that those cool things that have happened allow me to do. We can start off with the talents as usual, just because that's like a fine place to start. We're playing Titan, of course. We're still rocking all the way through Colossal Capacity, which is why I have this extra bag, by the way. People ask about that. It's this right here. Into Hulking Form, which makes all of my little minor passives 50% more effective, so we're getting just big gains all the way across the board. I like Aftershocks. This is one of the reasons why we have random Aftershocks proccing off of our abilities, and one of the reasons why Stampede is a 97% chance to Aftershock. Then, of course, we're rocking Mysterious Lineage, which helps us have 6.5k life almost. Very, very cool. We are going over the top for strength. We are dipping into brutal. And then whenever I am using my mapping build, I will grab just a little bit more melee damage and a little bit more AoE and an armor break. There are some changes that I think I'm going to make to some of this stuff. We don't need to worry about it right now, but there are a few little adjustments that I will likely be making over time. But let's just go ahead and show you what we're cooking with now, because it's been working just fine. At level 96 and 40% of the way to 97. Getting there. So strength down through here. Picking up two-handed damage. What's this one? Oh, 3 div. Yeah, we're going to have to go ahead and sell that to you, buddy. Going for two-handed damage, and then once we get into maps build, we'll go for the extra AoE. This is kind of a nice item, though, isn't it? Where is it? The Plague Noose? Where's that? Oh, this guy. Ah, yes. A very nice one. I used that one for a bit, but we're not using it now. But here you go. Thank you. That's going to help us for sure. A little 3 div sale. Thank you, dude. Enjoy. Yeah, anything that shows as like this little red line, that's the mapping build. The green one is the single target build. But we do damage and then AoE for maps. We come down here for grabbing just a little bit of strength to keep everything nice for our HP, but also mostly just for wearing the gear. For mapping, we have extra AoE and Aftershock AoE, which is sick. Then we come down here to grab a jewel socket and to grab this little bit of bleed stuff for my single target build. For mapping, we're doing a bunch of AoE and damage, and then for single target, like bossing setup, we have like bleed. And I might adjust this a little bit too. This is what we're cooking with now, and like again, it's been good. I like to try to make a build update before I start to test other stuff, because that's kind of where it's at for me. We do have like one random node of bleed, but this helps us be over 100% chance on our big attack, which is hammer. For my blue jewels, we're looking for cold resistance, damage recouped as life is cool, AoE is cool. That's, I don't know if there's like another thing you can get on blue jewels that's excellent, but what happened? Wait, what kind of bird was that? Big morning. Is it okay? We'll see. Oh my gosh. A hawk just bumped into our window. Whoopsies. So the blue jewel, I don't know if there's like another thing that you can get on there, but max cold res in jewel sockets and max lightning res and max fire res in jewel sockets is one of the ways we're getting our defenses going. Very helpful for that. So we have 90% fire res right now, but that's not gonna last. 85 lightning, 85 cold, 75 chaos. We're actually overcapped a little bit. My resistances are off the charts right now because we haven't fully made use of some of the gains we've made, but we'll deal with that. But yeah, I'm using my jewel sockets for resistances basically. Then we go over here for the single target build, is doing a lot of this kind of reduced attack speed, but increased bleeding damage and longer bleed duration. And then we also have it just hitting hard. I'm debating putting this back in my normal mapping build too, just to hit harder with that. We go into strength for my war cries. We're having additional empowerment on war cries, and they empower additional attack, which is sick. Again, we have like one of these jewels, I think. No, maybe we have 2. Do we have 2 reds? We do. Eventually I might put fire resistance on this one too, but that's a cool jewel. I'll talk about that in a second. But we have max fire res, Block chance. Do I even need this for max fire res this exact moment? I will in a second, but anyway. Now here's another source of aftershocks. These two nodes give you aftershock chance, which is sick. And I have anointed for Titanic. That's how I have it on my amulet. So for red jewels, we want max fire res, block chance, and at least 1 gain rage on melee hit. The totem life doesn't do anything for me really, but it just kind of is there. We are going for the strength and reduced mana. We don't even use mana. We don't care about mana, but we do like the extra strength. And since we're stacking strength to some extent, we do like to have increased damage per 15 strength. One of the reasons we're stacking strength is Giant's Blood. Lets us use those two-handed maces in one hand. Really cool. But it does triple the attribute requirements of weapons. Only thing that maces require is a bunch of strength, so that makes it fairly easy just to get a bunch of strength and be able to use those bad boys, which synergizes with this right here. So we're going down here. I love max res. It's like one of our biggest defensive layers, if not our most important defensive layer. These just give you 1 of each, and then you get this one, which is 2% to maximum fire resistance for each 40% uncapped fire res. So over here, if you'll notice, we have well over the required amount of fire res. So we're getting, if I had, what, is that what it would be? If I had 2% more fire resistance, then we could get another bracket, but we're already capped out at 90. That's as high as max res goes. But basically, if I was like at 160, then we would be getting like, what is that? 8% more maximum fire resistance. So even just at 80% res, you'll have, you know, another 4%, 120 is even more, right? So that's pretty nice to have. It helps you get your fire res, max fire res up by quite a bit. We're going down here for a jewel socket, which is, again, going for maximum cold res, a little bit of damage recouped, and AoE on the blue. Now, I do need a little bit of intelligence for my chest piece that I'm wearing, so I've got a couple of nodes giving me intelligence, which is nice, and then you combine it with all of this, all attributes, into polymathy, which gives you 10% increased attributes across the board. Now, one of the things you can do if you're still struggling to get your gear on from stat requirements is you can start going for some of these equipment and gems have reduced stat requirements. That's not what I'm doing, but you can if you need to. I'd like to highlight the fact that we are using green jewels to help pad our lightning resistance, maximum lightning resistance a little bit. Again, we go for +2 max lightning resistance. You can get cool stuff like attack speed on these. I have increased the magnitude of damaging ailments you inflict with critical hits, which is kind of like specific. But if I do a bleed with like a Sunder crit, it makes it do more damage. So it's like sort of useful. You might be able to get something other cool stuff on here, like evasion rating might do a little bit for you if you have evasion on your gear. I think you can get like accuracy if you need it, but the main thing I'm doing with green jewels is getting the maximum lightning resistance, and then other stuff is cool too. So for here, we're coming up for increased AoE, increased just area damage, which is just damage for me. Most of my attacks are just AoE anyway. But for more damage, for my mapping build, we'll grab a little bit more AoE and recovery rate. We also could consider going for the armor break and AoE. And I might even want to move like this right here, this stuff, into this instead, right? I think it does a little bit more stuff for me. I don't think that doing damage to enemies when they're like heavy stunned is quite as good as doing damage like to them to their like armor break, because I do more armor breaking anyway. The increased armor break duration isn't that good, but this is basically like 27% increased damage, and this is basically 35% increased melee damage, which is why I've gone for that. But anyway, something to think about. We go up here, grab another jewel socket. This one does not have max fire res on it, but it does still have block and chance to bleed, which is helpful, and bleeding duration, which is cool. Stun build-up's good too, so it's a nice jewel. One thing I could do is corrupt that bad boy though, but it might brick it, so I didn't want to yet. And then we come over here for all the bleed stuff. We're going for bleed duration into aggravation. On any bleed longer than 4 seconds, whenever you hit somebody, it'll aggravate it, and my bleeds last 8 seconds, so that's like, as long as you hit somebody after the bleed's been on them for 4 seconds, it'll make it 4 seconds of 100% more damage, which is cool. We have the bleed chance, and then you can take the bleed magnitude, which is just more bleeding damage, but I haven't done that. But I also have just a 10% chance to aggravate bleeding on targets you hit with attacks. So basically, when I'm hitting them with empowered attacks, has a chance to aggravate. When I'm hitting them at all, it has a chance to aggravate. And then when I hit them after the bleed's been on them for 4 seconds, it definitely aggravates. So that's just doubling my bleed damage, which is nice. Another way to scale bleed is with magnitude, and another way to scale bleed is just make the initial hit harder, because that's where bleed damage comes from, is it sort of is 15% damage of the initial hit is its base. So you can scale bleed through duration, through magnitude, and through just hitting harder. And there's some consideration that I have to just making my character drop all bleed and just hit like an absolute truck, but we'll see. I think bleeding is kind of like a cool way to do it, but I have some ideas that involve like just more damage to armor broken targets and just breaking armor more consistently. We'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of room for this character. We've been playing it quite a bit. We're level 96.5 almost, but there's definitely a lot of room to experiment and grow, which is very exciting. Before we talk about other stuff, let's go to the top side of the tree real quick, where we are picking up stun threshold and strength, and then percent life, which is awesome. Don't like to get stunned. This kind of helps. These two things help you not get stunned. On the extra stun build-up maps, you still might get stunned a little bit though, so heads up. Going for the jewel socket, again, same thing. On the blues, we're looking for cold res, increased AoE, damage taken, recouped his life. Again, there may be better things that you can get on blue jewels, so that's just kind of what I've gone with right now. I go over here for my mapping build, has this whole wheel. Now, if you don't want to take the whole wheel, then you don't need to take these 3. These are just increased damage, but it's just easily accessible, strong damage nodes. But I definitely want to make sure that we have the stun build-up and attack area damage. We want to make sure we're doing the increased AoE if you stun an enemy recently, and increased AoE. Again, mapping around, just want to blast with huge AoE, which is good for clearing, but also good to keep you safe. If the mobs are dead or stunned, they're not hitting you, which is great. But then I just take more damage. Now over here, lots going on, right? We're getting a ton of extra max resistance for all 3 elementals. We're getting plus all elemental resistances with plus 5 elemental resistances. And then you're also seeing the maximum lightning resist, but that's coming from this jewel right here. So this jewel, called Against the Darkness, can have a lot of different stuff on it. It'll affect the small passives, and it can affect notable passives. Small passives are giving me 1% increased maximum life, and the notable passives in this big blue radius are giving me 1% maximum lightning resistance. So all of these little guys are giving me life, and all these kind of medium guys are giving me +1 max lightning res, which is sweet. Because we have a lot going on in this little area, right? We have rage on hit, and then rage is also giving me armor, which is awesome. We have armor on hit, and then attack speed when hit, which is awesome. So when I'm in battle and getting hit, which does happen frequently even though we block a little bit, we get all juiced up. We get rage, which makes me do more damage, take less damage, and attack faster, which is sick. I love that. We're also using blood magic, which is why I have no mana. It just makes my skills cost health, which I like. I hate mana. I like the idea of using my health as that. I even for my first characters ever playing in PoE 1, every single character was like a marauder with blood magic, so we're just keeping that rolling. We're just grabbing some kind of just generic damage here, but it does give us 3% max life and then 1 max lightning resist. And just because we're in the area, I was using 3 points for both specs to just give me more damage. I may use these 3 points down here instead though, but I do like this damage, so it's nice to have that too for both specs. Now we kind of have a divergence here. I go for AoE, and then just 1 little node of damage for my mapping build, and then down here I'll go for close damage. But because these both have like 2 points in the radius, and my health stays kind of the same, although I do gain 1 point of max lightning resist whenever I spec into my boss killing build. All right, and how that works, when I talk about like how I use my dual spec, and if you guys didn't understand, what you do is you'll just basically just click nodes to get somewhere, and then you'll click this button, and you'll be able to spend points just branching off a little bit, right? So like you spec all the way up to here, and then you would say weapon set 2 and spec these. And then if you wanted to spec like this, you'd spec all the way to here, and then you go to weapon set 1, and then you would spec all of these. And so you have a couple points that you can spend that sort of like do like its own little branch, basically. And then so when you're in weapon set 1, it'll be this. And then when you go to weapon set 2, it'll be different. So you can have 2 different weapon sets, and I eventually may do that. Like another way to use weapon set 2 is to just make it like you have 2 hammers, right? And so whenever you cast your Hammer of the Gods, like you stun the boss, switch into your 2 different weapons. Weapon set 2, Hammer of the Gods, the boss, and then switch back. That's a fine way to do it. What I'm doing right now, because I don't have like a really good offset is I just switch my weapons. So this is like, it's like in a WoW. I just like respecking, right? This is just easy. Just respec. I'm in my respec. I'm in my bleed spec now. So my hammer is still doing good damage, but it also has a 100% chance to bleed. But then when I'm playing this build, it only has a 50% chance to bleed. Because now, we only have the chance to bleed from lacerate and from my jewel, right? So it's a little bit different. But you go here, and then you're pumping. Let's talk about all my skills real quick, and then I can talk about how I switch my skills for bossing. The skills here, make sure we're good on time still. I don't think we're gonna have time to do a gameplay, but we can go through all of this. But the gameplay is, there's a lot of gameplay on YouTube in the live tab. A ton of streams and stuff. You guys see what this thing looks like in action. So for Mace Strike, this is just kind of like utility. I have Culling Strike, I have Lifesteal, I have Aggravated Bleeding on heavy stunned enemies. I have more stun build up, and then I have Maim, which just slows enemies. So we could make this thing do more damage or something like that, but that's just what I've got going on right now. Seismic Cry, we've got it giving me Rage. Whenever we shout at a stunned enemy, it'll give me Rage. Ms. Bean, you can't sit there right now. Big girl. So Seismic Cry really only ever activates and goes on cooldown when you hit a stunned enemy with it. So keep that in mind. You're only going to get Rage or any of these effects, except for this, whenever you actually shout at a stunned enemy. This can daze enemies all the time. So you can kind of just debuff a boss to make them get more stun build up. Then it just costs less, which is nice. Infernal Cry does have a cooldown all the time, whenever you use it. But when I use it, it'll give you fire damage to enemies. So more enemies are going to give you more power, which is more, you know, like up to 125% extra damage is fire. But against the boss, it'll also give you a lot too, which is pretty sweet. Because bosses have like 20 power, it says. Right? So it's going to give you how much fire damage? Like 120 fire damage against them, which is pretty sick. And then you can scale that effect too, by the way, for War Cries, which is crazy. But anyway, we have it just empowering my skills by a little bit more. We have it actually consuming rage to make it do more damage, so I'll frequently like kill a pack, have a little bit of rage afterwards. I'll use my shout to consume rage so it doesn't get wasted, and then I can use that for more damage against the next pack. And then I have this on a shorter cooldown, which is nice. Come over here. Come on, Miss Bean. Then Leap Slam. We have Leap Slam creating Consecrated Ground, which is a nice little heal. We have that giving me rage, so if I ever do jump on somebody, Lily, come on. She's trolling because she wants to turn off my microphone. If I don't let her sit on my mouse pad right in front of chat, then and on my mouse, then she starts to find other ways of trolling. She's a good girl though. Also have it giving me a little bit more attack speed so that when I'm jumping like out of a mechanic or something like that, that can go off a little bit faster. And then I also have Despoiler, which makes this duration of the little healing over time and curse reduction effect of Consecrated Ground last a little bit longer, which is nice. Stampede, this is my big old clear ability for doing maps and stuff. We have that with Momentum, where after I travel a certain amount of time, you can see a little green effect on my guy. It'll do 40% more damage in the slam. So that's going to affect the big old slam and aftershock, which is also added to this the skill. So we have a 25% chance to aftershock from the support gem. We have 30% chance to aftershock from the actual quality effect of the skill there. When you add quality to it, it gives it a 30% chance to aftershock. Then you also have 42% from your ascendancy combined with your skill tree, so that's 97% chance to aftershock. That's where that's coming from. And I have it right now just with Splinter. I'm just breaking armor with Splinter. So physical damage contributes to armor break. And then when the armor is fully broken, it'll explode, dealing damage. Then I just have it doing more AoE. If you are not dealing enough damage to break armor, what you can do is you can drop the life off of your character and just go crushing impacts. And then you use Devastate. Use Devastate instead of the Splinter, where supported skills fully break armor when inflicting heavy stun. So this skill basically makes you heavy stun on any attack, and you also stun them earlier. So this will, like Stampede, will stun them very early into the effect, and then they'll start exploding. It's probably better for clear to run that setup, but I don't think I need it, so I can do Splinter and I can have more health as a result. So right now, for mapping, I'm actually running around with Scavenged Plating again. My armor has dropped very low. And I like having some armor, so we're running Scavenged Plating, which breaks armor from Splinter. And then I get Scavenged Plating. I also have it with Persistence on there, so that it lasts a little bit longer. On Herald of Ash is my another consistent aura. We have Vitality for mapping. We have Fire Mastery in there, because why not? It doesn't cost any less. It doesn't cost any more. And it just gives you just another level of the skill, which does something, surely. And then I have it with Cannibalism, which is 4% life recovered on kill, which is insane. So for Sunder, we have Sunder splitting into 3, dealing less damage and having less attack speed, but enemies can get hit with all 3 of those little lines, which makes it do 180% damage, which is pretty worth. Super critical. It always crits on an armor broken target, so you're just getting even more crit damage for free. And Sunder already has 100% increased critical damage bonus, so Sunder's critting for 300% increased damage, which is pretty crazy. We also have it with Brutality, so it just deals more fizz and less element, or no elemental, but we hardly deal elemental anyway. We have it consuming rage to deal more damage. Sunder is usually something I'm using like in combat, so we usually have some rage. It's not like a hammer where sometimes we'll just throw it at an essence mob in its essence little thingy. But this is something that we could also set up into hammer to make the hammer deal more damage. But that's what I'm using it with right now. And then I have it with concentrated effect. It does less AoE but more damage, but again, Sunder does enough AoE anyway that you can do that. Now Hammer of the Gods is a big heavy hitter. We have this one doing more damage for less attack speed trade-off, more maximum physical damage. It is ancestrally boosted for more damage and more AoE. And it is my main bleed skill. So we usually like to stun a boss and then set it up with a big old hammer afterwards. And since I do break armor a lot now, I'm going to go ahead and try exploit weakness. I was trying deep cuts. I didn't like it that much. I'd rather have a heavier pop. And this is a big pop. Even though Sunder also consumes the fully armor broken effect, it's not really that big of a deal. Because the armor breaks a lot because we have our little ancestral totem guy. So I was doing some stuff with Earth Shatter, and I may even go back into Earth Shatter as like my main skill at some point, because I like the pre-Earth Shatter on the boss before it's spawning, and I like how clean Earth Shatter stun into hammer is. But I do like Sunder still right now. But what we could do with that is, we might not need this little guy, but he's super helpful. Little totem guy. So we're doing kind of something similar that we were doing with Earth Shatter, except this is just maybe better. Because what we can do is set this little fella up to armor break for us. We have him breaking more armor. We have him giving me rage and healing over time when we plop him down. Which is pretty sweet. So this guy is just bonking on the boss the whole time, breaking armor like every couple attacks, which is giving me those big Sunders. My Sunders are empowered because he's giving me rage. And we can just plop down like a nice little healing area. Does it actually show how much healing we're getting? Yeah. So we're getting 500 healing per second when we're in our aura and we have our totem down. So we can kind of like tank a few hits and just bang on the boss a little bit. And he's breaking armor for us the whole time. He's whacking the boss and getting armor broken. So this is what I'm doing with maps, the Herald of Ash Scavenged Plating. But when we fight bosses, I'll go into Overwhelming Presence for the stun buildup. I will use Vitality still, but then I will use Herbalism instead. And I'm pretty sure, isn't there like a gem that gives you some kind of like melee, like physical skill buff too? There may not be. Let me see. I was like, maybe it'd be like a melee thing. If there is, that's cool. If there's not, then maybe not. But anyway, if we could find some like melee skill thing, that would be cool too. I thought there was anyway. That's what I would do there. You just put that buff in there too, and that would be cool. It's just a buff though. It's not even melee. Anyway, doesn't matter. Just chuck that in there with Herbalism and Vitality, and that's what I use for bosses. So in terms of my gear, this is where some things have changed. This is pretty cool. Might have to go through this quickly. So my weapon is the same. Still just doing added flat fizz, percent fizz, attack speed, and I still have life leech on this thing. That's good. The dream weapon, I think, for me would be a big flat fizz, big percent fizz, and then big fizz accuracy hybrid with like attack speed and plus skills, and probably still leech. That'd be the god weapon. On my helmet, we just want like life and enough resists, but my resist situation is starting to become handled pretty nicely, so we could probably at this point still get a bunch of life, a bunch of rarity, strength, and maybe even like intelligence or dex with a resist to make things a little bit more easy to manage stat-wise. My neck now has life, all skills, strength, and a resist, which is great. Necks can do a lot of crazy things. Like you can get max life and percent life on your necklace. I do not need the mana. That's kind of a dead stat. Energy shield, it's not that important, and it's really low rolled. But what does give me is the +3 of all melee skills. So now we're able to start working melee skills into the mix. Then we'll be able to even work those into the mix on my gloves. We can drop this chaos res as it stands now, and we could have like the suffixes on my gloves could be attack speed, strength, and plus skills, which would be insane. I still wouldn't mind like life and even rarity with armor maybe on gloves. That would be cool. But armor is really like not that powerful in PoE 2, unfortunately. I like it. I like the idea of armor, and it does make a difference, but I may not need to stack that much of it. So we have like a armor hybrid roll with armor life on there, so we could just get a better life roll, a better armor roll, and then we could get like rarity on gloves. Would be sick. Let's see, my chest piece, people ask a lot about how this has 5 sockets. So Warrior Invictus drops with 4, and then you can corrupt it to give it 5, which is very powerful because this chest piece gives you certain things depending on how many socketed rune or soul cores you have in it. So this one gives me 5% max life. I had one that was giving me global defenses per socketed rune or soul core, but this one gives me all elemental resistances, which again really helps me fix my resistances. This may even be overkill to have a Warrior Invictus with Ellie res and my belt now, but I think it's helpful. This one could be improved just by being a little bit better rolled, but I mean it's insane to have Ellie res and max life sort of just like turbo beefed by our chest piece. This is the main thing. This is one of the things that we got. So Ingenuity is kind of one of those like chase items that you might want to get when you have enough currency, but also when your character is powerful enough. It can have up to 80% increased bonuses gained from equipped rings, and we got it corrupted for +2 maximum fire res. So this one we could have paid like double for a little bit better, but I was like, let's get one that's good and get it started. So this is nice. So it gives you a lot of juice. Basically you're wearing 1.5 items because you can get 1.5 of your rings essentially. If it's you know, it's 75 increased bonuses gained from equipped rings, but with the 2 rings it's like insane, right? That's where the 1.5 comes in. Should we get this guy his little 2 exalt? Sure. My rings right now are giving me life, rarity, a stat, and a bunch of resists on this one. This one is giving me life, rarity, a stat, and resists. This one's kind of helping with chaos res. So for these, we might want to get like breach rings to get like super pump on those, because breach rings can have like a ton of life, and then you can quality it up even a ton more. So that would be wild. Putting on the belt at all has given me a boost to my rarity. We have way more resist than we need now with these 2 things combined, which means that I can use a lot of the suffixes, which are the last 3 stats on an item. We can use those suffixes for power, basically. For power. And Gamester, thanks so much, man. Big flex for you. We're always live, bro. We're always live. All right. Sorry about that. Oh, sorry to resub when you can actually say thanks. Yeah, we got you this time, bro. You snuck on. No offline resubs for you. All right, and we have our shield, and I guess we have boots, right? So the shield is giving me armor, life, 3 resists, and block chance. Block chance is huge. You want like big block chance, because that's what's scaling your chance to block here. So I'm only at 50% block. That's fine, but you can see my armor and evasion are pretty dang low. So we better have some life and max resist to pad that. I think that's like the main thing I'm doing with my character right now is big life, big max res, and a little bit of block. But that kind of satisfies the 3 different layers, right? You want to have a way of avoiding damage, you want to have a way of reducing damage, and you want to have a way of having a big like life pool to soak the damage, to be able to take the hit. And then on boots, I have 30% increased movement speed with life, strength, resists. I don't think I'm likely to change these boots, so when I bring down my fire and lightning res, it's probably going to mostly be off of a ring, and probably also mostly going to take it off my helmet. But then I have to figure out how to have enough chaos res to still be able to change my gloves to plus skills. So we kind of still want chaos res on my ring, but we don't need the lightning as much. When we can take off fire res on the helmet to get more rarity or get more stats or whatever, and then the gloves need plus skills. So that's kind of where I'm looking at next. Still wearing a rarity charm, still wearing my chance to gain a charge when you kill an enemy for maps. I probably could change my flask now that we have this percent recovery applied instantly. We kind of want just a bigger flask. This one's nice though. Gains charges per second is good for bosses, but instead of recovery rate, we'd probably want to see just a higher recovery amount to scale with the belt now. But that's where we're at for that. My Atlas right now, I don't have to do that. Atlas is, bro, is it alt then? He's just not showing it to me. Okay, whatever. My Atlas right now, when I have all the towers set up, I'll take all the precursor stuff. When I don't have all the towers set up, I will go down into the magic mobs. But one of the things I am experimenting with is buffing up the explicit modifiers through this. So the explicit modifiers are whatever is on your map, right? This little stuff. It just makes those numbers bigger. So it'll make the numbers bigger if the map is fully rolled, and it'll make those numbers bigger if the map is in an area that is being influenced by a bunch of towers, right? So that can make your maps a lot more rewarding, but a lot more scary too. So I'm still rolling maps kind of conservatively, but it also buffs like the gains. Like, so if it had like 98 or 100 rarity on it, it's gonna get even that much more rarity because of all the buffs to it. So that's what I'm cooking with right now. We got to swap over because we're going to be playing some Torchlight Infinite today. Very excited to blast the new season. But, again, if you want to see gameplay for this, just check any of the recent streams on Twitch, any of the recent streams on YouTube. Tons of map blasting, boss blasting, still working towards doing some pinnacles. Still having fun leveling up this character, still having fun farming up currency and making gains, because even though we've been playing this guy a lot, he still has a lot of room to improve. So, looking to keep that rolling. If you guys enjoy these build updates on YouTube, make sure you show them some love. If you guys like the PoE 2 content in general, pump it up in the likes and the comments, and be sure to come hang out on the live streams as well, which are daily. Blasting this character into the end game, having a really good time with him. Maybe we'll play other classes eventually, but if you guys have been watching my channel for a long time, you know that I pretty much like to just hammer the warrior class no matter what game it is and see what it can do really deep into the end game. And that's one of the things that's crazy about Path of Exile is you can really scale your character to exponential amounts, and you can continue to scale the game's challenge and reward to exponential amounts. So that's kind of what I'm interested in right now. And we'll keep it going. We'll see you guys on stream. Thanks for watching. Peace.